All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashum, Yahweh Shai, Bahashum, Rukakwadash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. This is your fellow servant, Rakaya from the GMS Orlando camp, coming at you with another impromptu lesson. And tonight, I want to get into this article I found from the archive, and it's entitled "The Argentine Ranch, Where Tech CEOs Plan to Ride Out the Apocalypse." All right, and I want to get into this lesson through the spirit, because right now America, or rather the world in general, is currently undergoing a social and economic restructuring spearheaded by these tech CEOs. And as this restructuring is taking place, we're starting to see how a lot of the elites and these tech CEOs are taking extreme measures to prepare themselves for the collapse of this present structure in order for the new one to be implemented. The cat is out of the bag concerning Esau Edom's plan on how he's going to implement this new world agenda. All right, he plans on collapsing, the structure that's present in order to implement a new one, to rise out of the ashes like the phoenix, and to implement this new world agenda. All right, that's going to be heavily centered around the implementation of the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip. All right, pursuant to Revelation 13 and 16. All right, but right now, as we see this restructuring taking place, all right, a lot of these tech CEOs and elites in general, all right, are taking extreme measures, spending billions of dollars, all right, in order to prepare themselves for the fallout that's imminent. And what you're starting to realize is a lot of these elites understand that fallout is imminent. All right, they understand that an apocalypse, all right, or an apocalyptic event is imminent. But what they don't understand, according to prophecy, is that this apocalyptic event that is going to take place in the form of World War III, all right, is going to be the end of Esau Edom's rulership. All right, there won't be a rising from the ashes like the phoenix for Esau Edom. All right, once this apocalyptic event takes place, that's going to be the end of this empire, the end of the age of the Edomite, and the beginning of the age of Yahweh Shai. That's what a lot of these elites don't understand. And in this article, which we're going to get into, you'll see, the mindset of these elites and how it all lines up with prophecy at the end of the day. So this is again from the archive, and it's entitled "The Argentine Ranch, Where Tech CEOs Plan to Ride Out the Apocalypse." It says, in the foothills of the Andes, across an expanse of rugged terrain 5 times the size of Manhattan, a group of entrepreneurs is preparing for the end. And why are they preparing for the end? All right. Ultimately, they're preparing for the end because they've heard the report of the prophets, all right, which is the testimony of Yahweh Shai. Okay, this is Jeremiah 50 and 43. The king of Babylon have heard the report of them, and his hands wax feeble. Anguish took hold of him, and pains as a woman in travail. And not only has the king of Babylon heard the report of the prophets, all right, but the kings of the nations have heard the report of the prophets, because the prophets have been scattered throughout the 4 corners of the earth. Okay, and now, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, you have men under the banner of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai springing up in every nation, really, in Italy, in Jamaica, overseas in Europe, London, Australia, Mexico, here in the U.S., really in every state here in the United States, you have prophets, who are prophesying on the highways and byways and the chief places of the city. So as the word of the Lord has sprung up through the Spirit, it's covered all bases and really all lands. And as the word of the Lord has covered all the lands, the report has reached unto the kings, and the kings have heard the report of Yahweh Shai. All right, they've heard the report of Babylon and how it's going to fall, and how Yahweh Shai and 144,000 in the nation of Israel, which consists of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, are going to rise. All right. So it says a group of entrepreneurs is preparing for the end. Why? Because Jeremiah 50 and 43, the king of Babylon heard the report of them, and his hands waxed feeble, and anguish took hold of him as pains as a woman in travail. And you go into that word report, it goes into the tidings, which a part of the good tidings, that the Lord commissioned his prophets to go out and teach, all right, is the removal of the captivity of the nation of Israel through bloodshed, all right, through calamity, through this empire collapsing, all right. That's a part of the good tidings that are being preached unto the meek, all right. The prison being open, from the captives. That's a part of the good tidings, all right, that is being preached. And this report has reached the ears of these elites, all right, and we're starting to see how it's affecting them, because they're moving fast now. They're starting to prepare themselves more speedily now. It says a handful of small prefab homes, geodesic domes, and airstrip have sprung up in the past 2 years on the remote Wamani Ranch, an hour via dirt roads from the nearest village in far west Argentina. All right, it says far from the world's nuclear superpowers and close to the Patagonia's abundant oil reserves and the fertile plains of the Argentine wine capital, Mendoza. Wamani is Argentine's Spanish tech founder, Mark Varvansky, best guess at a place that will survive Armageddon. When you go on the map, he's thinking that by sojourning here, I can't really put a marker, by sojourning somewhere around here, around the western shore of Argentina, that he's going to escape all of the turmoil that's taking place here in the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. All right, over here by the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. All right, well, we know that the Battle of Armageddon is going to take place pursuant to the book of Joel. All right, so he's thinking that by sojourning here in South America, all right, in Argentina, he's going to escape the nuclear fallout that's going to take place here in Babylon, in the United States, which ultimately, he could be right. He could be right. He could be right in the nuclear fallout not reaching there. All right, but the prophecy states, all right, that they're going to be hunted. All right, the rich men are going to be hunted and ultimately rounded up. It says, I'm gonna read it again. A handful of small prefab homes, geodesic domes, and an airstrip have sprung up in the past 2 years on the remote Wamani Ranch, an hour via dirt roads from the nearest village in far west Argentina, far from the world's nuclear superpowers, and close to the Patagonia, abundant oil reserves, and the fertile plains of the Argentine wine capital, Mendoza. Wamani is an Argentine Spanish tech founder, Martin Vervansky's best guess at a place that would survive Armageddon. All right. It says we are already in World War III. All right. We're already in World War III, which is something that the prophets have been saying, starting with the elders, apostles, a great millstone on down for years, especially these past few years. All right, we've already entered into World War III. Okay. These are the beginning stages of war, and it's only going to escalate from this point moving forward. It says we're already in World War III. The battle lines are already drawn. All right, through the Spirit, the battle lines were drawn through prophecy first. All right, let's get Joel. Chapter 2 and verse 20. It says, but I will remove far from you the northern army, which is the American army, all right, North America, and will drive him into a land barren and desolate, with his face toward the east sea, speaking about the Persian Gulf, and his hinder part toward the utmost sea, which is the Red Sea. It says, and his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he have done great things. All right, so we see how the Lord already has drawn this line, all right, concerning where the battle is going to be waged. all right, which is going to be over there near the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. All right, the East Sea speaking about the Persian Gulf, and the utmost sea speaking about the Red Sea. All right, that's where the Lord's going to drive the northern army. Okay, and in Joel 3rd chapter, it says, "For behold, in those days, in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Yahweh-Shaphat. And I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land." All right, and again, that valley of Yahweh-Shaphat is here. All right, is here. Right here. All right, and this is where we've seen an escalation of war. All right, this is where we've seen an escalation of battles amongst the nations, amongst the U.S., Iran, China, Russia. All right, the world superpowers. Okay, this is where an escalation of war is starting to take place, which is according to prophecy. All right, this is the battle line, essentially, that has already been drawn through prophecy. All that's taking place now is the highlighting of this line that's already been drawn through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Shem Yahushai. All right, the Lord drew the line first, and all these nations are going along with the word of the Lord that's already been established. So yes, the battle lines have been drawn. It says we're already in World War III. The battle lines are already drawn, said Varvansky over the phone to Wamani from a business trip to San Francisco, describing a conflict that pits Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran against most of the rest of the world. All right, and these are the end time world players. All right, that are going to really escalate World War III. All right, they're going to bring upon us the third woe. All right, as the scriptures say, and upon this third woe being waged, the third world's war being waged, what a lot of these elites, like this guy Vervansky, think is that they're going to hide themselves in a bunker somewhere, on a yacht somewhere, far away from the nuclear superpowers, so that the nuclear fallout doesn't reach them, and they'll be able to rise, out of the nuclear ashes, and establish this new order. They're going to be able to rise, they're going to be able to escape all of the nuclear fallout. Nothing's going to touch them, and they're going to be, straight. But the scriptures say otherwise. This is Revelation 6 and verse 14. It says, "And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together," speaking about the mushroom cloud, that's going to the mushroom cloud that's going to arise, after the nukes touch the earth. You look up what a mushroom cloud is, you'll see how it rolls together like a scroll. It says, "And every mountain and island were moved out of their places, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and the rocks of the mountains." So it's prophesied how when this happens, a lot of the rich men and the chief captains, mighty men, such as the men that we're reading about, all right, are going to hide themselves in the dens and the rocks of the mountains. All right, they're going to be in these bunkers. They're going to be in these mountains, these carved out bunkers in the mountains. It says, "And said unto the mountains and the rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand?" And when the wrath of the Lord comes, because once World War III is waged, Yahweh Shai is going to come soon after. All right, the Lord is going to make it known that there is no coming back from this third world's war. The Lord is going to make his presence known, all right, so that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they're going to be able to come back. They're going to wish that the rocks fall upon them. This nuclear fallout is going to be so gruesome. It's going to leave no hope in the eyes of these guys who are so desperately trying to prepare themselves for the new world. No hope is going to be left in their eyes, because the destruction that's going to take place, all right, is going to be something like never before seen, like it says in the book of Daniel. What the Lord is getting ready to do is going to leave these people with no hope. These elites who swear that they can see, far into the future, their eyes are going to be darkened, man. It says, far from the world's nuclear superpowers and close to the Patagonia's abundant oil reserves and the fertile plains of the Argentine wine capital, Mendoza, Womani is Argentine Spanish tech founder Martin Vervansky's best guess at a place that will survive Armageddon. We're already in World War III. The battle lines are already drawn, said Vervansky over the phone to Womani from a business trip to San Francisco, describing a conflict that pits Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran against most of the rest of the world. It just makes sense to have a refuge, he says. Vervansky is far from alone among the super rich in making plans to prepare for nuclear war, climate disaster, or economic collapse. Billionaires like Peter Thiel have bought land in remote New Zealand, while Meta's Mark Zuckerberg has a shelter beneath his ranch in Hawaii. LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman once estimated half of Silicon Valley billionaires had some form of apocalypse insurance. But 66-year-old Vervansky's vision is broader. He argues the whole of Argentina and the Southern Cone region could support complex societies in the event of nuclear war due to their distance from missile targets and radiation clouds and abundant food and energy production. So these devils have put a lot of thought, into where they're going to hide themselves. They put a lot of thought into what they're going to do concerning this impending nuclear fallout, because they know it's going to happen. They're not preparing as if this is nuclear fallout has a faint chance of happening. This is coming from the standpoint of them knowing that it's only a matter of time that nuclear fallout commences. And it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of where they hide themselves and where they're able to get themselves to hide to survive the nuclear fallout. It says, and he's not alone. It says, my idea isn't just to have little groups locked up in bunkers, said Vervansky, who built an estimated fortune of $700 million, according to Forbes, by founding companies in telecoms, internet services, renewable energy, fertility, and biotech. He's working on a novel that imagines a life in Womani after nuclear war wipes out much of the U.S., Europe, and Asia. A draft features protagonist Martin Vervansky and his family's hurried flight from Madrid after he spots unusual ship movements on satellite platforms. Once there, the family puts stranded and suddenly penniless American wine tourists to work on the ranch. So, even amongst the fallout, these elites plan on putting you Joe Smoes, especially you Negroes, Latinos, and American Indians, you penniless Americans, to work. They don't plan on working. They plan on putting you penniless Americans to work. You tourists, you people who are on tour during the nuclear fallout, you people who are traveling during the nuclear fallout, putting y'all ass to work. It says, once there, the family put stranded, suddenly penniless American wine tourists to work on the ranch. Vervansky bought the property in December 2023, weeks after the election of Libertarian President Javier Milei, with 5 fellow Argentine and American businessmen as co-investors. They include Alex Oxenford, a tech entrepreneur who is also Milei's ambassador to Washington, and Dan, billionaire founder of snack bar company Kime. Their goal is self-sufficiency. Buildings are fitted with solar panels. Vervansky plans to buy cattle to graze Womani's scrubby 32,000 acres, which include a 5,000-meter peak and several other mountains. They may purchase an even larger property nearby to grow crops. They are also studying whether large language models could be downloaded on a solar-powered computers to create their own limited internet in the event of a global server collapse, Verbinsky said. It says, people in Ujong Bustos, a nearby town of 12,000, are suspicious of the project. It's very weird to buy up so much land just for yourself with no commercial plan, said one gas station attendant who declined to give her name, citing fear of angering her employer by criticizing a local landowner. But Verbinsky is not only a wealthy person drawn to Argentina following Milei's election. The libertarians' free market reforms are more outlandish pledges to allow non-human corporations run by AI agents have elicited adoration from some corners of the Silicon Valley. Thiel, who secretly acquired New Zealand citizenship in 2011, purchased a mansion in Buenos Aires in April and moved his family there for 2 months. Verbinsky says he knows Thiel professionally and has spoken to him about Argentina and said they did not plan their investments together. We coincidentally came to the same conclusion that of all places you could go in case of World War III, Argentina is the best. All right, and if you want to keep reading, you can. Hold on, let me read this. All right, it says, Verbinsky and other tech leaders are also enticed by the idea that Argentina harks back to a wider, pre-multicultural Europe. Some people go to Argentina and say, wow, this place looks more European than Europe now, Verbinsky said. Argentina is proud of its Western civilization heritage, and people can proudly say so. And in Europe and America, you can't. Verbinsky, whose family fled Argentina's 1976 to 1983 dictatorship when he was 16, has lived his adult life between Spain and the U.S. He has built five startups that each gained valuations north of $1 billion. Verbinsky once identified as a Democrat who wrote last year that he took a turn to the right after rejecting the guilt that the left imposes on white people for the Atlantic slave trade, as well as for climate change and feelings of national pride. He also denounced the renewable energy group that he co-founded and later sold for scarring Spain with wind turbines. So he denounces that whole so-called white guilt. This is a Edomite that's really letting it be known, that he likes Argentina because it's no niggas, man. It's no niggas. And it's a place where you can proudly be an Edomite. You don't have to be apologetic like here in the U.S., where a lot of these so-called white men and women are feeling guilty for the crimes of their ancestors, due to the testimony of Yahweh Shai being put out. Over there, you don't have to feel guilty. You could proudly be a conquistador. You can proudly be, a pillager and have no regrets. But, if you want to read the rest of that, you can. I want to get this in Amos chapter 9, because all of this preparation is really futile, man. At the end of the day, what the Lord is going to do is allow us, some of these elites, to escape the nuclear fallout so that they're among the first to start rebuilding the kingdom of heaven here on earth. All right, the Lord is going to allow some of these Rockefellers, some of these Rothschilds, Verbinsky maybe, and some of his business conglomerates to escape the nuclear fallout so that they'll be among the first to put forth manual labor rebuilding the kingdom of heaven, among the first slaves of their brethren. This is Amos 9. I saw the Lord standing upon the altar, and he said, smite the lintel of the door that the post may shake, and cut them in the head, all of them, and I will slay the last of them with the sword. He that fleeth of them shall not flee away, and he that escapeth of them shall not be delivered. Though they dig into hell, and thence will mine hand take them. Speaking about the bunkers. Though they climb up into heaven, thence will I bring them down. Speaking about those who are going to try to escape into space. And though they hide themselves in the top of Carmel, speaking about the mountains, I will search and take them out thence. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, thence will I command the serpent, and he shall bite them. Speaking about Leviathan, because a lot of these people are going to go into these billion-dollar submarines, billion-dollar yachts, and try to escape on sea. And the Lord is going to command the serpent to snatch their ass up too. Really, the peril is going to meet them on every side, just like it's going to meet the majority of these Americans pursuing the Amos 5. The terror is going to be on every side for Esau Edom. And the destruction is going to be so powerful. So powerful that even though they climb into these bunkers and go into these mountain retreats, they're going to wish for the rocks to fall upon them, like we read in Revelation, the 6th chapter. Because the Lord is going to make his presence so known on the planet Earth, his power, his dominance known on the planet Earth to the fact that there's going to be no hope left in these people, man. It says, and though they go into captivity before their enemies, thence will I command the sword, and it shall slay them, and I will set mine eyes upon them for evil and not for good. All right? And the Lord is going to set his eyes, upon these elites to do them as they've done the apple of his eye. And even worse. We're coming into the time where the Lord is turning back our captivity. And as he's turning back our captivity, the world can see it. This is happening on the world stage. What's taking place is global. It's not local. The Lord is making global moves on the behalf of his elect. And as these moves are being made, fear is being stricken into the minds and the hearts of these elites. And they're doing their best to prepare. But as prophecy states, all that preparation is going to come to naught. They think they have it all planned out. And the Lord is going to show them that he had their number from the beginning. That being said, shalom, stay up.